Hello, and thank you for downloading episode 57 of We Got This with Mark and Hal. I want to take a minute before we get into this episode to thank every single person who pledged their support to We Got This during Max Fun Drive. We demolished our goal of 5,000 new and upgrading members, and we couldn't have done it without all the people who listen to this podcast. Thank you, thank you, thank you. If you were not part of Max Fun Drive, you can always donate and set up a pledge to support us. But another way you can do that really easily is by rating and reviewing the show on iTunes. It helps new people find the show, which we appreciate. The more we grow our audience, the bigger we get, and we're all gonna get a boat somehow. So now, without any further ado, here's episode 57 of We Got This with Mark and Hal. Hello, I'm Hal Lublin.
And I'm Mark Gagliardi.
Since the dawn of humanity, one issue has gone unsettled. With the fate of the world in the balance, we're here to settle, once and for all, best barbecue.
That's right. Don't worry, everyone. We got this.
Podcast should have a theme song. Podcast should not have a theme song. Yes, they should. No, they shouldn't. They sound good. Yeah, but people are just going to skip past it. You know what? You're right. We got this.
Greetings, America and the world.
The whole world, not just America.
Well, I'm...
Greetings, America!
This is a distinctly American, a distinctly American topic. And I'm very excited because this is I love our food episodes. This is the first time we've done a food episode with a chef.
Yes.
Which makes me very excited.
Yes.
Well, let's use that title a little bit carefully. I mean, I just came from the French Masters dinner in LA tonight, so I feel a bit humbled as a chef, but like sure.
Food name dropping.
Yeah, exactly.
That is, my friend, we have known each other for like 20 years.
We have at this point.
Yeah. This is, that voice, if you haven't picked it out already, is Adam Gertler. He is a chef. He is a restaurateur. He is a television host. He has his own podcast.
Yeah.
And,
I do everything.
He's a great guy. And did we do that show? Did you do Paper Bag Opera in college?
I don't know that I did Paper Bag Opera, but we both went to Syracuse University together at the same time. And you did the improv show.
Yes.
And I was in the improv show band.
Yes.
If you remember.
Yes.
I played harmonica.
You were on the harp.
And I did vocals in the band.
Yes.
And what I remember about you, this is all I remember about you.
I can't wait to hear Hal in college stories.
Was... You know how, improvisers will go to, comfortable places to get a start?
Uh-huh.
How always, not always, but, often would start, Once Upon a Time in the Land of Nod. Am I wrong? Am I wrong?
You would do whimsy prov?
If there's one thing people know about me, it's that I bring whimsy wherever I go. Like a pie pepper whimsy, it follows me around every land I visit. Doesn't matter, international borders. Get ready for whimsy. I'm not going to claim it at entry to your land.
So tell us now we all know you're a chef and we all know that you're the improv harmonica master. Yeah. Give us your bona fides on barbecue.
Okay.
Adam, why should we listen to you on barbecue?
Okay, why you should listen to me on barbecue? Where Hal and I went to school, Syracuse University.
Yes.
You would not think this is a place that is important in the world of barbecue unless you know.
Upstate New York.
Upstate New York.
Right.
A place called Dinosaur Barbecue.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
A place run by a guy named John Stage. I believe he started in 1987. And it is an amazing barbecue place. So for me, I was a Jewish kid coming from Long Island. I went to Syracuse, and when I experienced Dinosaur Barbecue, it was the first time I experienced this wood smoked meat, heavily hickory smoked meats, and it literally changed everything for me.
Really?
Everything. I went to school to study theater, and you could argue that Dinosaur Barbecue was more influential on my career up to this point than the theater degree, because I had a barbecue restaurant called The Smoke Joint. I make sausages now for Doghouse restaurants. We're about to open our 15th and 16th restaurant in the next couple of weeks. Thank you. This all comes from my love of smoked foods that formed at Syracuse University. Like, after I graduated, I built my first smoker out of a cardboard box, based on, something that I had seen Alton Brown do on, his show Good Eats. And I smoked salmon in that. And I've been using wood smoke to cook food, for so long now.
Are you mesquite or hickory?
I'm totally hickory. I'll fucking punch mesquite in its nasty taint. Yeah. I'm not a mesquite fan. I'm really hickory. I'm a big hickory guy.
Fair enough.
And you can accent that with apple or cherry, but like, hickory or get the fuck out.
Yeah.
That's fair.
No, go ahead.
Yeah.
Well, let me throw in. This was suggested. This is one from our email from we got this podcast at gmail.com. This is, again, people, if you're listening and you're wondering who is responding to you or listening to you on any social or communicative outlet, it's me. Mark,
You're Mark? What the fuck?
Mark here is not, that's not what he's good at. Look, it's fine. But,
I've never heard the show. I hear we have a podcast. I was wondering what these were in front of us. Yeah. I thought we were just hanging out at Adam's house talking about food.
This is from Adam Proct. I think that's how you say it. Proct.
So, fellow Adam.
Yeah, he wants to know so we brought an Adam to answer Adam.
Yeah.
But here's the other thing. Speaking of people, apparently, a lack of experience with technology runs in Mark's family because his older brother, Gabe, who is the proprietor of the Boar's Nest in Seattle, which is a barbecue joint that makes many different styles of sauce, which we'll probably get into as we move forward. You spoke to him and had him record a message.
Yes, I called my brother yesterday, and he listens to the show and frequently interacts with Hal online, and interacts with me over the phone when he gets angry about our decisions on these episodes. And my brother, I told him, I said, we're going to discuss barbecue. I really want your take on this. So get the little recorder on your iPhone and record a message, and tell me your thoughts on barbecue. And he said, of course, which one is the recorder? And I said, it's the one that looks like a little, earthquake seismograph.
So the thing to note is that this is someone who had to really overcome, an inability to deal with technology. That's how important this message was.
Yes, absolutely.
That he had to overcome his technological deficiency.
Yes. He's great at a lot of things. Figuring out all his son Roman, who is 4, knows every button on the iPad, the iPhone, and once made my sister spend $50 in a video game just by tapping while he was playing it. But here is the message from my brother.
Okay, Mark and Hal, this is my take on best barbecue. Here's the deal. I put a lot of thought into it. Memphis barbecue, of course, is my favorite barbecue because I grew up with that. Mark and I's grandfather would always have barbecue ready for us when we would visit Memphis all the time. It was the best barbecue. Hands down, in my mind, is Memphis barbecue. Then I went to school in South Carolina, College of Charleston, where I sampled Piggy Park, South Carolina-based barbecue with the South Carolina mustard sauce. Also, I'm in the car, and that was Morgan Freeman telling me where to go. So, the problem is, to me, this is no different than your argument of best religion. It can't be solved. You have chosen a category that you can either say who's the best. Thank you, Morgan. To me, it's like saying my grandma makes the best apple pie or my mom makes the best peanut butter and jelly sandwich. It's whatever you grew up with. It's whatever your heart's into. It's whatever you remember. It's whatever makes you feel good. Now, that said, pork is king over beef. Thank you, Morgan. Morgan just told me the police are ahead. I'm going to a basketball game, so my take on it, gentlemen. I'm going to exit right in 1 mile, me and Morgan. and I'm going to leave the debate to you. But in my eyes, best religion, best barbecue, same thing.
Well, here's what I get from that. First of all, Gabe, guess what? We are going to decide what is the best barbecue. So you and Morgan Freeman, I hope you had fun at the basketball game. I love how many times, I like that Morgan Freeman is telling you where cops are. Ahead 200 feet. There's going to be a cop.
I also like that Morgan Freeman keeps interrupting, like, for God's sake, Morgan Freeman, stop talking. I'm just trying to tell you how to get where you're going.
Heavens to Murgatroyd, T intersection. But we are going to determine.
We're going to determine the best religion. That's what we're doing tonight, right?
They're very similar though. Like barbecue is a religion.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it's way more important than the quote-unquote religion I was raised with, in that I've practiced it with a lot more studiousness, than like going to temple was always like, okay, from the moment I check in, it's like, T-minus how much more time before I can leave.
And we're davening.
We're davening, like, oh my God.
Catholics really are just like Jews.
Yeah. Like, you cannot wait for it to be over. Whereas with barbecue, you enter into a 19-hour process, like, gladly. Yeah. You're like, this is starting, and here we go. It's religion. I mean, it is religion. Like, to lord over a piece of meat and the smoke and everything for that many hours to get this end result, which, ultimately you're eating the thing like it takes how long it takes to eat something.
Right.
But what you've done to get it there is it's astounding, and it's so social, and the way that men can interact with it, like the religiosity of smoking the fucking thing.
Yeah. I will say you have built quite the temple in your backyard.
Yeah.
Adam has in his backyard. Can you describe your backyard kitchen?
Well, I have an upright smoker back there, and then I have a barrel barbecue that has both a charcoal side and a gas side. So,
which I am insanely jealous of.
Yeah, because sometimes you want to just grill really quickly, so you want to fire it up. And most of the times, I want to use charcoal if I'm going to cook. And then I have a flat top back there too. I make sausages. That's my main focus right now is hot dogs and sausages. So I use, that upright smoker to do a lot of that stuff, but I also love to make bacon and, all things like that. I love to smoke things for many, many, many hours at a time. It's a long, slow process. And that's the thing that people need to understand when it comes to barbecue is like, it's not like any other kind of cooking. You know what I mean? Like that's why, places like Texas, Memphis, Kansas City, Carolina, they take it very seriously. We were joking about how it's like a religion to us, but like, I'm a Jew from Long Island. I mean, I'm a bastard of barbecue. I'm a freaking tourist at best. You know what I mean? Like,
but you're a guy who takes it seriously.
I do, but I didn't grow up with it. I mean, I certainly can't make a claim to it like anybody that comes from these places, like in Texas, in Tennessee, I mean, it's very different. In Kansas City, which, arguably is like my favorite place for it. It's like, I mean, it's so different how it is intrinsic in the culture in these places that are quote unquote barbecue meccas.
Right. Now it's interesting you mention that because this is what we are here to determine today is, and I'd like to ask Adam, who asked this question.
Yes.
Is it best barbecue? What exactly are we deciding? We can ask, what is the best barbecue city?
Okay.
Which city has the best barbecue sauce? What's the best barbecue region? Because it really does. It varies from place to place. Is it, which is better, pork or beef?
Mm-hmm.
And these are like,
sure.
So the first thing we need to do, I think, is determine because you can't just say what's the best barbecue.
Mm-hmm.
No,
what question are we going to answer?
So he did ask a specific question, and his question was, what is the best barbecue sauce?
Which I feel is tough to answer because Memphis, Kansas City, and Texas, all three of those sauces are so similar.
I gotta say, just that inherent question is offensive to a barbecue chef because while there are different kinds of sauces in every region, and every region has a sauce, no region wants to be known for its sauce prominently.
It's the meat.
First. It's the meat. It's the process.
I was saying this on the way here. Mark and I were talking about it because there's nothing I love more than eating or talking about food.
Even when mics are off, you and I are just talking about food.
We're talking about food. And I was like, listen, we're not going to determine probably meat. It's probably going to be like city in style. So I'm a big brisket fan.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, whenever I go to a restaurant, if I order the brisket at a barbecue place and it comes out slathered in sauce, I immediately go, they didn't cook this right. Because if they cooked it well, they would bring out the meat. I would taste it on its own merit. And then I can choose how to sauce it. I'm the same way with ribs. I'm a huge pork ribs guy. And I prefer a dry rub because I feel like that's there's a little bit more artistry in it.
Yeah.
Like if you slather it in sauce, you probably burnt it as well.
Well, you know how
right?
I think ultimately you have to realize like where you are and what your expectations are, and you have to manage them. You know, I mean, like if you're not in one of like the main barbecue regions, like you're not going to be satisfied, and like so like to be dissatisfied with a brisket covered in sauce, it's almost like when I see that, I'm like, okay, I know where I'm at. I'm not going to judge them. I'm like, because I know where I'm at. I'm gonna move on.
It's my fault for ordering brisket in Delaware, right?
Thank you. Exactly.
But
exactly.
I'm a comic book fan, so I'm terrible at managing expectations.
Yeah.
Because every film I think is going to be the greatest film, and the worst one or whatever.
You really need to manage expectations. Like, if you're in Texas, you should be looking for the best brisket you've had in your life.
Right. Yes.
And anything short of that,
what's the best brisket you've ever had in Texas?
Franklin's barbecue it was pretty amazing.
Franklin's is
the place in Austin, that is, known for their extremely long lines.
Yes.
And they were pretty phenomenal. I gotta say the best Texas barbecue I've had was in the town of Lockhart, Texas.
Okay.
When I was much younger and I was traveling out to California for the first time, I went through Lockhart and I experienced, brisket and Texas links. At a place called Kreitz's Market, and they serve the brisket and the links by the pound, and they serve it on parchment paper or butcher paper, and they give you
couple slices of white bread,
a little bit of jalapeno, maybe a chunk of cheddar cheese.
Cheese,
yeah,
interesting.
Like just
Not
a chunk.
Associate.
No, but just a chunk of cheddar cheese, like all on paper with proudly serving no silverware or utensils. Like that is the thing at Kreitz is like they're proud of the fact that like if you want any sort of utensil, you're not in luck here.
Yeah, at Kreitz, you eat like the animal you are.
But here's the thing though. They've been doing this a long time. Mm-hmm. This is Kreitz's Market. These are like German immigrants, people that came to the country that brought like the charcuterie culture from like Eastern Europe and Germany and places like that, and the sausage culture, and brought it to Texas. They migrated there and they immigrated there, and like these links and this brisket is just unbelievable. And it's unbelievably good.
I go to Austin frequently. Where is it? How far am I going to have to drive from Austin?
It's 23 miles, I believe, from Austin is Lockhart.
Not terrible.
And then places like Black's, Kreitz's, and there are great places in Austin too, like Franklin's and
Stubbs was great.
Stubbs and Rudy's, all that stuff. But like Lockhart is the place where the immigrants were first. That is the place. And to me, Texas barbecue is brisket and links. And just to let you know how important, just like I explained that like Dinosaur had a big impact on me. Like when I was doing a Food Network show called We'll Work for Food.
Yes.
And we went through Texas. And we went to this place called like Louis Miller's Barbecue, and we tried their links, and like the sausage was so good that I got into making sausage, and now I make hot dogs and sausage for a chain of restaurants because that place, like that Texas barbecue culture, like hooked me on that. Like,
and I think that's what Gabe was saying in that recording that I thought was really interesting when he's like, no, barbecue is religion. It's that.
Oh my God. It so is. Yeah.
It's that thing that like you remember that moment that you tasted that. For me, it was never about beef. It was always about pork. I grew up in Tennessee.
Okay.
And I like sauce on ribs. I like it added. I like it brushed on in hour 1, hour 3, hour 7, hour 15. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So talk about Memphis barbecue. Like I've talked a little bit about Texas style, which is really beef. Mm-hmm. And anybody from Texas will tell you that. And here's Texas barbecue in a nutshell. Just like I said, it's beef, but should always have the pink ring.
Sure.
Right.
But you see it more because of the iron content in beef, not to get too technical, but like in Texas, they use oak is the wood that's typically used, or maybe mesquite.
Those
it's
monsters.
Beef, and it's links. It's links, which are sausages that are quick smoked. Now, in Tennessee, it's a little bit of a different story.
Tennessee, it's pork.
Okay.
Tennessee, it goes back to that barbacoa tradition from the Carolinas, and was it DeSoto was the one that first discovered the natives cooking pigs in this pit.
Wow.
And,
I don't know if that's true or not, but that's amazing.
Yeah, this is just made up.
That's amazing.
Columbus came over.
Secret origins.
I will go history nerd on both of you and go way back with the barbecue.
He just dropped the soda barbecue. I'm like,
I can't wait for the Lin-Manuel Miranda hip hop musical about DeSoto bringing barbecue.
Never eating barbecue. So for us, it was all about pork, and it was, a pork barbecue was always an event. It was a thing you would cook. These guys would cook a whole pig, and it came from that tradition. When we would go, and he mentioned it in the thing, when we would go to Memphis, which is where my family is from. I grew up in East Tennessee, but we'd go to Memphis, and my grandfather would go to Gridley's, and he would get full slabs of pork ribs and pulled pork, which I believe was usually like a Boston butt.
Yeah.
And that for us was barbecue. And the way I was never a sauce guy either. I was, because that barbecue was they had a dry rub on the ribs that they would do. They had some we would get wet ribs and dry ribs. And it was just that smoked meat magic of Gridley's. And they would smoke for so long. So that to me was like, it is almost like a religion in that it was our family would get together, 3 generations of our family, our clan would sit and have this meat that had been lovingly cooked for over a day. And as far as the sauce goes, I have a very strange technique. I don't know if any of you guys, any of our listeners would use
this. This is a cooking technique, or is this
an eating technique?
Okay.
This is, my brother has all the cooking techniques.
So guys, this is a pro tip. I guess this falls under the category of pro tip.
Hashtag pro tip.
Hashtag pro tip.
From Mark Egliardi.
Pro eating tip. I do the little, because it was always styrofoam for some reason. The barbecue sauce was always in styrofoam.
Listen, barbecue unapologetically is like a poor man's food, so like don't blame barbecue for using a lot of styrofoam.
It should be served like you should, like, the best barbecue on the earth is probably served on actual trash. The cheaper it's served on, the better it's going to be.
The main ingredients of barbecue are meat, smoke, and chlorofluorocarbons. But I do the fork in the barbecue sauce.
Okay.
Then forkful of
meat.
Forkful of the meat.
Okay.
So I do, and that's how I maintain my amount of barbecue sauce that I like to put on the meat.
I think, what I love about your guys' show is that you'll eliminate things from the argument to get to the root of the argument.
Right.
So can I offer that we eliminate any barbecue that is dependent on the sauce being its prominent flavor?
Absolutely.
Yes.
So if like any of you are out there are like, oh, my favorite barbecue is based on sauce, like we're kicking that to the curb.
Yeah. You're a garbage person. Change your life. I'm not going to say people of the world right now. But you need to, like, rethink. That's like saying, what the best part of a hamburger is? That there's ketchup on it. No. The ketchup should accentuate the flavor of the burger, and the best food doesn't require the embellishment. The best hot dog is made more enjoyable by what you put on it.
How many times have we gone back to this hot dog?
Guys, the best thing to have on a hot dog, unfortunately, Thousand Island dressing.
What?
It's got all the things in it.
No.
Yeah,
It's got pickles,
true.
it's got mustard, it's got mayonnaise.
It's got mayonnaise, it's got ketchup. It's true. It's true. I'm sorry to say
How
it's
dare
the
you.
best thing to
How
have on a
dare
hot
you.
dog.
And you're a chef. for
I know,
God's sake.
I'm a hot dog expert. I know this to be true. It's a fact.
It's almost like you opened the refrigerator
But-
and emptied it onto a hot dog.
Here's the thing. Now,
Please.
would you say that there's more places in Memphis or Texas per capita for barbecue restaurants? Because I feel like there's, Texas is so huge. And then you have, Lockhart is really like Barbecue Central, and there's Central Texas Barbecue. And then there's Memphis, which is a small part of Tennessee.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you have certain places like Rendezvous, which is known for their charcoal ribs, and you have the barbecue shop, and you have Central Barbecue. You've got a couple of known Memphis joints. Texas, to me, seems like it's more like the Wild West. Like there's more places out there for their barbecue.
Austin alone, I mean, I've been to Austin several times as well. I've gone to South by Southwest for a couple of years. I haven't been in a while, but every time I was there, I was always like, you would look up barbecue on Yelp because you're at South by Southwest and you have to do stuff on your phone or else they shoot you. And like, there are 9 barbecue places within walking distance. But then, like, for me, I'm a Salt Lick guy, so I want to go down to Salt Lick, or if I'm at the airport, I have to get Salt Lick barbecue because it's at the Austin airport and the Oklahoma City airport.
Yeah.
So if you're in either of those places, I know that there's good brisket there, but like, it's just everywhere.
Well,
It's like the Starbucks of Texas.
If you look at a map, if you look at a map, the state of Texas is significantly larger than the dot representing Memphis.
Yes.
Even if they use one of the big dots on the Rand McNally map.
the star.
Yeah, the one with, no, Nashville gets the star.
Of course.
The star is reserved for capitals. What are you, some sort of cartography monster? How dare you?
And Nashville is full of singer-songwriters and hot chicken at the moment.
Hot Nashville chicken is so good.
That's
What
the
is-
thing.
yeah. I don't know what
Nashville
hot
is
chicken
having
is.
a huge moment, by the
Is
way.
it
Like,
the culinary moment?
yeah, culinary moment is huge right now.
Hot chicken's blown up.
Hot chicken, I mean, you
What
know
is
that
that?
because like Kentucky Fried Chicken is it's basically like fried chicken with hot sauce on it, but it's not quite like saying like fried chicken with buffalo hot sauce on it.
Okay.
It's very hot
And it's in
very
the,
spicy.
there's like cayenne in the dredge,
Yeah,
right?
it's in the dredge, but then there's also a sauce that it's lacquered in. So it's
Okay.
a very hot, spicy version of fried chicken. And it's having a huge moment right now.
That sounds great. One time
But we're not talking...
we're not talking
We're
about
not talking about chicken.
Can I just say though, one time, this is as fancy. I'm like the least fancy eater.
We all know. We've established that you only eat tan food.
But because I was hanging out with Ben Blacker and Julie Locouture, the power couple of
culinary
of
masters
eating in Los Angeles. We went to this place when we were in Chicago where I had a fried chicken, like a roulade, but it had aerated siracha on the plate, which for me was like, this what
Like a sriracha foam almost.
Yeah, what am I in the chopped kitchen over here?
Yeah.
And it was great. It was really, really good. I like spicy stuff.
Yeah.
So there was an interesting sriracha.
I want to say
delivery
something
method.
about just to go back to the beef, the Texas beef versus Memphis, because I will defend Memphis in this. In my conversation with my brother yesterday, we had a long talk about barbecue. He said, because he used to serve at his restaurant, he has 5 different barbecue sauces. He and a friend toured the South studying barbecue sauce from each different region. But he would smoke, brisket and pork. He would do a pulled pork ribs, pork ribs and beef brisket. And they stopped doing the brisket because the profit margin was terrible, and the brisket was super expensive.
Okay.
Yeah.
And he said that the number of people that come in and ask about it, he said, I'll tell you one thing about those beef barbecue people. There's some real jerks sometimes when they open their beef barbecue. When they, whoa! You saying your barbecue place, man? How you not gonna have beef barbecue?
Yeah.
Well, you just you just do pork barbecue? Which I thought was that is an argument for Memphis, that Memphis people are sweeter, and so is their sauce.
But don't we all want beef ribs so we can feel like Fred Flintstone?
No. Beef ribs
are gross.
Beef ribs are not the preferred rib. Beef ribs are the kind of thing that you only have at home.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like an extra thing. I will say this. Having had a tremendous amount of barbecue in both these states, I don't know that there's anything more perfect than a Memphis style rib. Mm-hmm. It's this perfect thing when you pick up that rib and you have that perfect smoke ring around it and you bite into the rib and it comes off in this perfectly tender bite, but everything else on the rib stays there.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm talking about that not overcooked rib, and it's like smoky to perfection. It's like having like your own little piece of pork shoulder on its own little bone.
Yeah. It's a little pork shoulder lollipop.
It's a pork shoulder lollipop. And man, if you've had this, I don't know if there's anything better. And I gotta say, I'm a real snob for the flavor of hickory, which they eschew in Texas. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know, they do. It's
mesquite country.
It's mesquite country and oak. They're big into oak, and you know what?
I've never heard of oak smoked meat.
They use oaks in the cooker, and a lot of times in Texas, they won't even say they're smoking it. They'll say it's a wood cooker, oak cooker. They don't like say we're smoking it. It's like it's the barbecue pit. Mm-hmm. It's pit cooked or it's oak cooked. They don't say I smoked it like the way they do in Kansas City or in Tennessee. Like they don't even just use that term. They don't use the verb smoked. But to me, and I don't know if it goes back to that like dinosaur barbecue thing, like I love hickory. Yeah. Like I love it. It's the perfect balance of being like a really savory wood smoke and a fruity, sweet kind of smoke. Mm-hmm. And you need to know how to smoke. Like you can't burn the wood too quickly. Otherwise it creates an acrid flavor. You know, it needs to be burned at a low temperature, so you're only combusting like those very delicate compounds, you know?
What do you think about the terrible monster people that use liquid smoke?
Well, you know, man, I don't have anything against it. Like personally, like I get like, you know, like if you're working at like Applebee's or something like that, you know, like.
You heard it here first. Adam Gertler shouts out Applebee's.
You know, cooking with liquid smoke is at least it's exactly the same every time. It's a quantifiable ingredient. Smoking is
the magic.
Right. Yeah. But that's the whole point though, is like the magic is not, it's almost better to use liquid smoke than like pretend like you have the magic.
Right.
Because it takes a lot of hours, you know, to get to that level of expertise. It takes your Malcolm Gladwell 10,000 hours before you call yourself a smoke master.
At that point, you're just really trying to, like, get a bunch of volume out. If you work at Applebee's, you're not like, all right, well, I'm going to be on Barbecue Pitmasters next week. I really better up my game.
Honestly, if I'm executing menu for Applebee's and I'm trying to like, execute a menu that's going to be consistent for restaurants across the country, I'm probably going to try to figure out how to use liquid smoke rather than train like random schmo, A to B to like make barbecue. It's not going to happen.
I would like to say though, for those who don't know, liquid smoke is not artificial smoke. Liquid smoke is made from the condensation of burning hickory or mesquite.
Yeah, it's
so
liquid smoke. Yeah,
it's not like artificial flavoring. It is in fact condensation. And real smoke.
But you mentioned like vaping to me.
It is.
It is exactly like vaping in that it is the thing and it is not 100% authentically the thing.
It's like vaping in that I've switched to it because I can do it on a plane.
Oh, by the way, have you seen Vapes on a Plane? That's going to be on Sci-Fi Network.
I'm through with these mother effing vapes on this mother effing plane.
You mentioned, Adam, a second ago, you mentioned the magic of it.
Yeah.
And that for me is a big part of it, especially with this notion of the going way back in history to the like cooking one pig for your community.
Sure. Yeah.
And cooking it over the course of a couple of days. And I know that this was barbecue and a lot of Southern cooking was originally the recipes were created usually by slaves or family of slaves or the people who did not have a lot of money.
Yeah.
And so it was one animal that could feed a community for a long period of time. And that sort of is a thing that is, and I don't know, is the brisket, is that a more expensive cut of beef? How is that like?
Brisket is not necessarily an expensive cut of beef when you compare it to like ribeye or strip loin or filet mignon or things like that. So I would not even like, price is barely an issue at this point with things like that. Brisket, the beef, probably, is it more expensive than like pork shoulder? Yeah, maybe marginally.
Okay.
But,
I'm just trying to find all factors that we can weigh in determining which is the best
I mean, the interesting thing to me also with brisket is how, in Texas, they'll ask you if you want like lean or moist. There's two very distinct parts to the brisket, to the cut of meat. There's that lean part called the flat, which if you've ever had corned beef, corned beef is corned beef brisket, and it is that lean part, that flat part. And there's, the fat part of the brisket, which has more intramuscular fat, and when you cook that for a long time, it is more succulent and very tender. So when you get like fatty brisket in Texas, it's from the fatty part of the brisket.
Right, but it's all rendered to the point where you're not getting like globs of fat.
No. It should eat tender.
Right.
But it eats in that very tender, succulent way that like great pork shoulder eats.
Right.
In that it's taking something that was traditionally tough with a lot of intramuscular fats and fibers, and then they get broken down over time or temperature. So you can cook a tough cut of meat like a brisket or a pork shoulder over several hours until it gets to, maybe 190 degrees, and then it's very tender and it's succulent. Or you could cook that same piece of meat to 150 degrees over 20 hours. Mm-hmm. And what happens is you're not overcooking the protein. Protein is the same, but those intramuscular fibers, and those, those break down over time versus temperature. And so you'll get something that's succulent and not overcooked. That's why you have this thing where people will say like, we'll swear to cooking something at 180 degrees for 20 hours. It does make a difference.
Speaking about the length of time required, does it drive you crazy when people say they're going to have a barbecue and then they just grill chicken in a backyard?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Like, I barbecued this for 18 minutes.
No, it drives me crazy when anybody doesn't know what they're talking about. Yeah, right. I mean, it drives me crazy when because they're just so obviously demonstrating that they have no idea what they're talking about. You know what I mean? Like, if that person was doing that in an ironic way, and it was like, I marinated this chicken, but to demonstrate that you have no even respect for the for the art form, like that's just embarrassing. It'd be like someone like inviting a bunch of people over to their house, a bunch of people that really appreciated the ballet, and then like they just gyrated around.
Or turned on the Macaulay Culkin Nutcracker.
Yeah. Or brought in Honey Boo Boo.
Yeah, exactly.
Can I say something about fat for a second?
Yeah.
I'm now vegan. I've been vegan for a few months.
I'm so sorry we're doing a barbecue.
This is not the best episode for you.
It's medically ordered. I'm team meat all the way, but I love prime rib. And please tell me if this is gross. You guys can be honest. I'm not going to stop. When I have prime rib, I eat the fat. I don't put the fat aside. I eat it with the meat.
Yeah.
When there's fat, and not even like there's a little marble in it, but like that is a white triangle.
Yeah.
Right on the side.
Put that to the side.
I paid for this. Is expensive. This was $9.95. All I can eat.
I'm not saying that's weird, but I'm not a fan of doing that.
That's just me. Am I the only one?
And I'm sure there's other people that do it too.
I feel like I've disappointed you.
Listen.
No. I think that the quality of the meat will reflect its desire to be consumed. Like, if you have a really excellent quality, like prime rib, then you're not wasting a thing. That triangle of fat is absolutely getting consumed. And if there's some delicious au jus with it, God bless you.
Yeah.
But just know that prime rib is also the same cut of meat that is a ribeye steak.
Right.
You know, it's a well-marbled piece of meat. It's versatile and that can go both ways. But the whole idea of roasting it slowly is that same idea that I was talking about with like what breaks down the pork shoulder and the brisket. Like when you roast the ribeye, you actually start to break down some of those intramuscular fibers and you get a more tender piece of meat. And all protein wants to be cooked at a lower temperature.
Okay.
That's a fact. You know, all protein wants a lower temperature.
Right.
You might, a higher temperature provides caramelization where you're converting the sugars of certain things. But the protein itself wants slow, delicate, gentle cooking.
You gotta massage your protein.
You want to massage that protein. Especially if it's lean, right? Like, if you have like chicken breast or eggs or all these things, like the most tender, lean proteins, if you think about it, they want very gentle, delicate cooking.
Like Morgan Freeman's voice. It needs to be gentle.
And it needs to tell you where to drive.
Now's the time.
Put that brisket in the oven. Now everybody just calm down.
All right, let me ask Morgan Freeman to drive us north from Texas to Kansas City.
Yes.
Let's talk about Kansas City. We've spent a lot of time talking about Memphis.
I love Kansas City.
Yes.
Kansas City, famous for the
Kansas City
stockyards.
barbecue. Yeah.
So they have beef and pork and I'm guessing
everything
goat and chicken and whatever else.
I think it's a lot of hickory in Kansas City. What I found amazing about the places in Kansas City is that the smokers themselves were these huge, elaborate contraptions that you load the fire outside and then you're serving the meat out of the oven inside the restaurant. But it's the same cooker.
Oh, it's like a sideways chimney?
So that the fire is stoked outside and that the smoke is traveling through a long channel and then so that the smoke is channeling. So like in my mind, what happens in Kansas City is that a lot of these like different compounds and things that you don't want kind of dissipate and you get this smoke that sort of travels and slowly cooks the meat. And then they serve it right out the smoker when it's ready. And these pits are 70, 80 years old.
Yeah.
And cleaned regularly, I assume.
I don't know about that.
Listen, the smoke travels through the dead rat.
Exactly. No, that dead rat. In my mind, that dead rat is giving you flavor.
That's Zagat's, they love dead rats.
Yeah.
How many dead rats did they give?
And they'll tell you that the sauce is sweeter in Kansas City. Yeah. But the sauce is sweeter because it's combating a very heavy smoke flavor.
Right.
That's the reason that the Kansas City sauce is sweeter because the wood smoke can dip into the acrid. You know what I mean? There can be more bitter compounds. So it just made sense that the sauces in Kansas City developed a bit sweeter than the ones in, Tennessee or Texas where like, there's very little sugar in the sauce at all.
Vinegar based, is that right?
It's like a tomatoey vinegar sauce in Texas. The sauce is very much an afterthought in Texas.
Yes,
it's not even a thing. In Memphis, more so because you get a glaze on those ribs. But you also said like they're dry or they're sauced. In Kansas City, the sauce is a little bit more part and parcel with the whole package. Because
it's necessary because of that smoke.
I mean, that's just my opinion, like, on how it's developed. Like, that's how I see it. Like, Casey Masterpiece was actually a barbecue restaurant before it was like a sauce that was like acquired and bought. And I actually got to eat at that restaurant. And it was like a great barbecue restaurant.
Did you put sauce on you? Did you put Casey Masterpiece sauce on you?
I did. And it made sense there because the meat was so freaking smoky.
Yeah.
Right.
So that like that sweet sauce made sense. And then it combined to make like a great flavor.
Let me ask you this then. We've discussed a little bit about Memphis. We've discussed a little bit about Texas, a little bit about Kansas City and, pork versus beef. So what do we want our question to be? And what do we want our answer to be? I realize that
we forgot one other place, and that is the Carolinas, both North and South, which are each a little different from one another. Like South Carolina's more.
I apologize to the citizens of North and South Carolina, which includes much of my family in South Carolina. So I apologize. I always think of Memphis, though. I think of pork being one thing. So I think of the barbacoa tradition moved from the Carolinas over and stopped at Memphis. Mm-hmm. So I think of all of that as being one tradition.
Okay.
With the exception of the mustard sauce. You want to talk about the mustard sauce?
Yeah. In Carolinas, they've got the mustard sauce. They have the more vinegar sauce. They're both kind of a vinegary, kind of thin sauce, and it's usually more pork. I think. Here's the thing, as much as the Carolinas love to claim that they have barbecue is barbecue, there's less diversity there. Mm-hmm. It just seems to be less of a part of a culture. Like in Memphis, you've got Beale Street, you've got the music, you've got the King, you've got Memphis ribs that just kind of go with it, Right. And in Texas, you have Texas barbecue, Texas beef, it is part and parcel with the culture in a way that the Carolinas just, it's just not quite the same.
I think of Carolina, I think of a low country boil before I think of barbecue.
Right. Yeah, I think so. I guess we're really the way we've attacked this all along has been regions. So it's really what region is the best barbecue.
And these, by the way, these are the regions that make the best barbecue, which is such an original American art form in the world of art culinaire that, it's almost like, a disservice to say one is better than the other.
They are all the best food ever.
Yeah, this is
they're all delicious.
This is like comic books. This is like American art forms we're talking about.
But we have to pick one. That's the rule.
Ultimately, we're going to declare a winner and the other two can just go eat dirt.
Yeah.
And that's
if for no other reason than to defy my 1 year older than me brother.
Yeah.
How dare he?
Right?
And that's what happens on this show is that I've listened to this show and basically it's you can have an opinion, but then there's what is right.
Right. There's a correct answer.
There's a correct answer.
There has to be. If there's a question, there must be an answer.
Right. It takes all the onus away from you, right?
Yeah.
You don't need to worry about it anymore. Here's the right answer.
So that being said, I think we have three finalists, right? We have Memphis, we have Kansas City, we have Texas. The Carolinas, we love you. But you're eliminated.
Sure. And Alabama with your weird mayonnaise barbecue sauce.
Stop trying to make that a thing.
Yeah.
Stop trying to make white barbecue sauce a thing.
It's not going to happen.
Ain't going to happen. I've had it several times. I've had people say it. It's you know what? Don't try to make your mayonnaise tangy and call it a barbecue sauce. Stop it.
Yeah, you're basically making Arby's horsey sauce.
Yeah.
What you're doing.
Stop making horsey sauce and telling me it's a thing. Just because you're on the Food Network Barbecue Masters Tournament of Champions.
I don't care how much time Adam Richmond spent in your state eating that slop.
All right. So we have, and we have Kansas City with its giant smokers and its super smoky meat and its delicious sauce. The region with the most integral sauce.
Yeah.
We have Memphis with its barbecue pork and its
ribs especially. Ribs. We said those pulled pork lollipops.
And then you have Texas with the beef brisket. On white bread, on parchment paper, the least fancy of any food.
But they'll ask you lean or moist, unapologetically, and people will say moist.
Yeah.
And they'll know it means fat. And they don't care about saying moist. People have a problem with that word, but not in Texas.
No, they will say that word.
They'll say moist.
They've moved. That's the only place that they'll say it. Where you hear a woman say, "Can you make me a moist?" That's the only place you'll hear that, and it will be okay, and everybody's cool with it, and that's not dirty at all.
Oh, I want to meet her.
Yeah, give me that coffee ground covered newspaper that also has some meat on it now.
All right. For me, if I may,
Yes.
you guys both, you spent some time in Philadelphia. You're from Philadelphia.
Yes.
If we did an episode on what is the best pretzel region, you would be in deep, deep trouble with your entire family if you said anything except Philadelphia. You'd be in deep
There
trouble
is no
with
other
your
answer.
soul.
That's why. There's no other answer.
Right.
Sure.
That's the way I feel about Memphis.
Okay.
And being a guy from Tennessee whose family is from Memphis, I am
Oh, Mark.
feverishly.
Look at you.
what?
That's so cute.
How I'm turning into Hal.
Now you're turning into me, aren't
Yeah.
you? After all the mockery.
Yeah.
How the world has turned.
You guys, here's the thing. I like.
Yes and
For me, barbecue is and has always been. It's not that I don't like brisket, but for me, brisket is brisket, pork is barbecue.
Okay.
Okay.
What does it come down to for? What does it come down to for you?
Well, man, as the Jew from Long Island who always has considered himself the bastard of barbecue, it's like, I like to just like what I like. But, I mean, if it came down to my favorite nugget of food,
Yes.
I mean, there's nothing better than like a perfectly smoked rib.
Okay.
I mean, I gotta say, like, at the end of the day, if I'm putting like a great brisket against a great rib, I think for me, I want the rib, and I think I've had the best ribs in Memphis. So, I think I have to go Memphis.
Can I confirm something?
Mm-hmm.
Is Memphis the one that does dry rub?
You know
You do
what?
both.
They do dry and wet. And that's the thing. And I've done both. The whole point is if the meat is cooked good, the sauce is only going to help.
But that's real. If I go somewhere and I order Memphis style ribs, at any restaurant, I'm more likely to get a dry rub rib. Is that right?
If you go any place and order Memphis style ribs, you're more likely to get a hand job. I don't think if you go to a place that's ordering Memphis style ribs and you're not in Memphis, like, don't bother. You know what I mean? Like, don't bother. It's not going to be anything worth anything.
Fair
you know
enough.
what I mean?
Well, then, let me add this and say, people of the world who enjoy their meats cooked slowly with wood or rocks or dead rats, we're not going to judge you. Unless you're using that.
Dead rat smoke?
Yeah, we should judge the
doesn't
people
want
that are using dead rats.
Okay, fine. And people using that weird creamy mayonnaise garbage.
Alabama white sauce?
The Alabama white sauce.
Yeah, I don't think that's what they're telling you it is.
Exactly, yeah. I'll get some of that old Alabama white sauce. There's only one best barbecue in this country. What could be the signature food of America.
Yeah, I would not argue that.
Which, like anything else, we stole from the Native Americans.
Sure.
And claim to be pure America.
Too late.
And that barbecue is made in one place. The place that gave us, not only the great Elvis Presley and all of the artists released under Sun Records, gave us not only the Tennessee Titans in that 1-8-8 season, brought them back to a respectable record, and not only the place where I once did a corporate job for Symantec, they also brought us my wonderful co-host Mark Gagliardi and his family, who are like a second family to me, and the best barbecue on the planet Earth. Do you hear me? My face is right up on this microphone, everybody. And that's because I am telling you, you have asked and we have answered. Asked and answered. The answer is Memphis barbecue.
Memphis!
That's right. Tennessee, baby.
Adam, my friend, my longtime friend.
Yes, sir.
Tell everybody where they can find you. What should they be watching? What should they be listening to?
Oh, my friends. My name is Adam Gertler. You can find me at Adam Gertler on all the social media places. You can find me hosting your movie shows on FX on Friday nights. On March 17th, 2016, Season 2 of Man vs. Child kicks off on the FYI network. That is a cooking competition show where we pit young prodigy children against grown-ups in cooking blood sport, and that's a thing to do. So I'll see you there.
Yes, and also your podcast.
Oh yes. I also host the DC Movie News podcast. You can find us on the Popcorn Talk Network at DC Movie News SK on the Twitter. And we talk about all the upcoming DC movie news, such as the Batman v Superman and all the things like that.
Fantastic. Well,
thank you for being with us today, Adam. This has been very, very cool. As a barbecue fan, I was very excited about this episode.
Yeah, this was really exciting. I always love to geek out about barbecue. It's my favorite thing to do and talk about. Like, that's the thing. This is a thing that is like a sport, but it's like you can also go and do it. I can imagine this is what it's like for golf fans that like to watch Tiger Woods,
which also takes
but also like
hours.
to golf.
Yeah.
Right. It's the same kind of thing. Like, I can't do those things, and I don't understand why you'd want to watch it, but like, I will spend like 20 hours cooking a piece of beef, and I would probably also watch somebody doing it as well.
All right. Well, this has been answered, but there are many more topics that we need to cover. So please keep them coming. You can reach out to us on Twitter at We Got This Tweets, or check out the Maximum Fun subreddit. There's a conversation happening right now.
There's also a conversation happening on our Facebook page, which is / We Got This Podcast, and in our email account, although it's just me and you talking, people who are emailing me and you. Mark, not involved in that at all. I'll maybe tell them what you said. Maybe.
Do not know the password.
Yeah. We got this podcast at gmail.com. And again, thank you, Adam Pracht. That's your new pronunciation of that name, for the suggestion.
And thank you, as always, to Jonathan Dinerstein and Mike Furman for our score and song, respectively.
Thank you to North Carolina resident and producer Ken Plume. Sorry about that, Ken. Thank you to researcher Kate McManus, to graphic designer Uri Kelman, and our QA tester and my partner in crime, Jen Alba, a.k.a. Tiki.
And also, of course, thank you, as always, to you, our listeners. We would not be doing this if you were not interested in what we bozos had to say. So thanks for giving us a chance to talk to each other every week in fun and exciting new ways. Thank you, thank you, thank you. For Hal Lublin, I'm Mark Gagliardi.
And for Mark Gagliardi, I'm Hal Lublin. And don't worry, everyone.
We got this.
We got this.
We're Dave and Graham, and we host Stop Podcasting Yourself.
We started this podcast back in 2008, before podcasts had to have any kind of concept, so we don't really know how to describe it.
It's kind of like going to the barber shop if your barber knew all about the first season of the show Alf.
It's like a 90-minute massage where the masseuse is two people talking to each other with a third person.
It's like the Monsters of Metal tour, only quieter, no music, and just talking.
It's like a makeout session, but without the lips touching, they just talk a lot.
Download Stop Podcasting Yourself from iTunes or MaximumFun.org.
Hey everyone, we're the Flophouse, one of the newest additions to the Maximum Fun podcasting network. I'm Dan McCoy.
I'm Stuart Wellington.
And I'm Elliot Kalin. What is the Flophouse, you may very well ask?
We watch a bad movie and then we talk about it.
A bad movie podcast? Isn't that like every fifth podcast on the internet?
I'd answer that by saying, 1, we've been doing this show for over 7 years, long before the entire premise of our show was a cliche, and 2, shut up.
Sick burn.
I'd say that our show is more of a comedy podcast. A podcast about words that sound like other words. A podcast about me singing long, irritating songs like this one. A podcast about pitches for a Ziggy comic book movie. Or discussions about sex tarps.
Yeah, I mean, mostly it's a show about 3 friends just hanging out. And talking about ding-dongs.
That's mostly used to.
Wait, what?
So if you like any of those things, subscribe in iTunes today or visit MaximumFun.org to follow the show.
The Flophouse.
Woo!
MaximumFun.org.
Comedy and culture.
Artist owned.
Listener supported.